Tropical Storm Bret is heading westward, and we have tropical storm warnings up for the southern Leeward and northern Windward Islands. Meanwhile, bands of rain, some of those bands heavy, are working their way up the east coast, and they will be bringing, in some places, copious amounts of rain. There's a $10 word over
Yes.
the next several days, and we have other things going on too. And we'll let you know all about them in such incredible detail that you will just be shocked tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, which is brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. It's a place where you need to take your truck, whether you are a landscaper or a do-it-yourselfer, to get all the mulch, topsoil, and sand you could possibly need, plus anything else to make your home or your business look great. 631-756-1125 is the telephone number. Nowhere can you find better prices. And, of course, as we all know, the website is
OmniTrueValue.com.
Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The referral link is pinned to the top of the chat board. It's also on the descriptor to this video. They have all sorts of other weather gadgets and gizmos, and of course the latest in smart weather fashion. Use the coupon code Joe and Joe Weather Show and tell them what they're going to get, Joe.
10, not 9 or 11, but 10% off.
Yes. So here we are on a Wednesday night, and we are looking at a tropical storm in the tropical Atlantic, which was probably, if you would have made a list of things that probably wouldn't happen in June, this I think would be on the list. And Bret there's an Air Force reconnaissance aircraft getting there even as we speak. So the obs are in. We will show them to you a little later on. And meanwhile, we've got rain coming. I mean, I know a few people have made it clear to me, Joe, that they haven't seen much in the way of rain in the last number of weeks, and that some places, not all, but some places are quite dry. Well, this should I think this will certainly resolve that issue.
Well, we parts of the eastern United States can use the moisture, although unfortunately, in situations like this, sometimes it's a little on the excessive side. But we will be looking at wet weather, unfortunately coinciding with the first weekend of summer, which officially came in with the solstice a few minutes before 11 o'clock Eastern time this morning. And yeah, you're absolutely right, Joe. The last thing you'd probably expect. But again, it's been a weird year so far. The last thing you would have expected so early in the season is to see a tropical storm system positioned, especially where it is and where it has been. And not only that, we have another system that's trailing behind it by, I'd say, about 600 miles?
Yes.
A disturbance which it's in the central tropical Atlantic. And according to the Hurricane Center, that system has an 80% chance of forming within the next 48 hours and a 90% chance over the course of the next 7 days. So we're not just looking at an isolated formation of a storm with Bret. We may be looking at yet another one.
And by the way, as Anthony Orr, our resident hurricane statistician, sent me a note about that, and I know some things, but not all things. And Anthony points out, according to Philip, let me make sure I pronounce his name correctly, so let me get it in front of me. But at no time have we ever seen two tropical storms form in the tropical Atlantic south of 23.5 degrees north, which is the Tropic of Cancer. At no time have we ever seen two storms form south of 23 degrees north and east of 60 degrees west in the month of June. So this would be a history-making event if we should get this system to become a tropical storm, the one that's behind Bret. And this is from Philip Klotzbach from the Colorado State University. So a very interesting little factoid something that has, at least to our knowledge, has never happened before.
Pretty amazing. Absolutely amazing. And by the way, when, I'm not saying if, but when this second system that's trailing behind Bret does form, it will be the sea storm, and it will get the name Cindy.
Cindy.
And I wonder if anybody, will decide to go back to some Brady Bunch footage and put little Cindy face on the hurricane.
I would probably have gone to little Cindy Lou who was no
Yes.
more than 2.
Yes.
So on that note, welcome to everybody tonight on the chat board. Thanks for cooperating over the fact that we are starting late tonight. Usually we start at 7:35, but we started late at 8 o'clock tonight. We will be back tomorrow at the regular shopping time, which is 7:35 p.m. Eastern. We're here Monday through Thursdays at that time, Sundays at 11 a.m., and Fridays and Saturdays we are usually off unless there's some sort of apocalyptic thing happening. And I don't think that what happens Friday and Saturday probably, amounts to what I would describe as apocalyptic. So we will be off Friday and Saturday. Meanwhile, here's a surface map. And interestingly enough, the high is east of Maine, but enough of that high got wedged in so that if you drew a line across northern Pennsylvania, northern New Jersey to about New York City, Long Island, and points north, you actually didn't have a half bad day.
No, it really was not a bad day. Of course, for reasons that John, I'm not going to get into it here. It's that I was inside. In fact, I was in this office more than I cared to be for much of the day. So if there were any periods of niceness out there, I really didn't get a chance to. One thing I wanted to do is I wanted to get rid of those clovers today by mowing the lawn. And it looks like now the grass is going to be much too wet tomorrow. And maybe I can figure out in between breaks and the possible showers Friday and into the weekend of being able to get the tractor mower out. But today would have been a great day to get rid of all of that stuff. But that's the way it goes.
Well, you may get your opportunities if there's some breaks in between the waves of precip coming up. But the onshore flow pretty much impacted areas. If you were in central Jersey and points southward, you got that east wind coming in off the ocean. North of this stalled out frontal boundary that it sits from just off the Virginia coast, comes into a low in eastern North Carolina, and then that front just sort of snakes down as a stationary front through the Carolinas, cuts Georgia in half into another low down in Alabama. So combine this with that upper low. This was, I'm just looking at some of the temperatures at 5 o'clock across Kentucky, Tennessee, northern Alabama, northern Georgia, low 70s. I didn't get out of the 60s today. In fact, it wasn't until about mid-afternoon when we got above 65. I mean, that's just the kind of day it was here in the northern part of the state.
How do you like that? First day of summer in Georgia, and in the temperature not being able to crack 65.
No, it was a gloom and doom type day, and I ran out. I went into Blue Ridge, which is about a half-hour drive from here, to the south. I'm sorry, to the west, and we had poured rain, which was followed by about an hour of self-destructive sunshine, and then that went away. And then when I came to head back, ran into another downpour. So it was that kind of a day. I mean, certainly up here in the mountains in northeast Georgia, it was definitely gloom and doomish, and we're probably going to have another day like that to an extent tomorrow. Meanwhile, there's moisture feeding up the eastern seaboard, and I'm just, by the way, looking at the temperatures down in Texas, which with this front into southern Louisiana, then cutting across central Texas in half and running northwestward. So it was well into the 100s. Looking at these obs, 100 and I think that's San Antonio with the 105, and to the west of that, inside the really dry areas between there and Del Rio It was 113, Joe. 113.
These are not heat indices. These are
No.
the actual ambient air temperatures.
Yeah, I mean, it was 100-degree readings all the way up to Amarillo and all the way west back to El Paso, and of course, a lot of 100-degree readings that you see in the Southwest. Not quite there in the northern part, north of that boundary line at 5 o'clock this afternoon. It's low 90s near the frontal zone, and it's mostly middle 80s. Dallas Fort Worth is on this map at 84, so at least it did cool off a bit. Even though I watched a couple of news stories, basically saying that the entire state was burning up today, which was really not quite the case, but definitely still hot weather going on. And everybody else, I mean, I'm just looking across Illinois, mid to upper 80s across the Ohio Valley, middle and upper Mississippi Valley, but they had sunshine. So if you don't have the sun this time of year, if you've got clouds, and particularly if you have an ocean wind, your temperatures are going nowhere, which is why most of the areas in the Northeast that had the cloud cover, Central and South Jersey, down into the Delmarva Peninsula, they were in the 60s for much of the day, but it was actually warmer in upstate New York. It was in the middle and upper 70s there, and on up into northern New England, it was in the low to mid 70s.
Somebody on the chat board, I'm sorry I didn't get the name, was commenting about how it was a gorgeous day today in Ithaca, New York. And I would agree, looking at the satellite pictures. And yeah, we had some intervals of sun here, but mostly it was a high to mid-level deck of clouds. And now the clouds have pretty well thickened up to a degree. And that pretty much is going to tell the story, because I don't think we're going to be seeing much in the way of sunshine, at least over the next day or two.
No, I mean, I pulled up the loop here. You can see it's still clear. Well, mostly clear as you go north of, excuse me, north of, say, Poughkeepsie, Kingston, north of there, and up the northern half of Connecticut. But now the cloud line is starting to make its move and pushing up, the high beginning to give way enough, so all this southern moisture is going to definitely move up and get involved. There's not a whole lot of convective activity going on, though, because on the north side of that stationary boundary, it's all on the south side. So we don't have any thunderstorm or risk. I don't think we're going to have much in the way of thunderstorm risk to worry about tomorrow. I think it might be a different story as we get into Friday and Saturday.
It was Environmental Coffee House, by the way, that made the comment. It was an absolutely gorgeous day in Ithaca, New York, in the Finger Lakes. And now I am home in Allegheny County, and it's still gorgeous. So
nice.
Enjoy all that gorgeous weather, because it's going to be rather limited, I think, in the coming days ahead.
On the full U.S. view, you could see the cloud cover covering, except for the Northeast, up in upstate New York and New England. You got clouds all the way down into Florida. There are areas of showers and thunderstorms, which we could tell by the lightning strikes. There's a band that's to my south that now is falling apart as it moves northwestward. So I'll have to see when the next round of rain comes tonight. Also, we've got action going on with thunderstorms up in the northern plains, and even down further south, eastern Colorado, down into Texas now, northwest Texas, seeing some rather large thunderstorms that are firing up there, and we'll check out on the radar. Now, there was rain on the radar all day. Now, I don't know how much of this reached the ground, but much of what you see here is on the light side, and there's also the area in the darkest blues, probably not even reaching the ground yet. So some patches of light rain occurred in South Jersey, southeastern Pennsylvania, down into Delaware. It's a little more concentrated in southwest PA into West Virginia. There were some heavier downpours there before. Not a whole lot going on in Virginia and in North Carolina at the moment, except for a small little patch in northeastern North Carolina, just probably not too far from Elizabeth City. And then you get into the heavier downpours in eastern central Tennessee, across central Georgia, interior South Carolina, down to the Florida Panhandle, a few special marine mornings there, and also some showers and storms cutting the peninsula of Florida in half. And then we've got this stuff firing up in Texas. We've got a few severe thunderstorm warnings working at the moment. One patch of storms north of San Antonio, and the other one is on, I forgot the interstate that goes from Houston to Dallas, but it's sort of right in the middle, and that thunderstorm is moving southeast. So if you're driving from Dallas to Houston and you're in this mess, the thunderstorms are moving along in the same direction you are, so you may be in them for a while. And we've got a bunch of severe thunderstorm warnings, Joe, in northwest Texas, and even a few tornado warnings that have popped up in the panhandle of Oklahoma and also in northeastern Colorado. Not There's one lone severe thunderstorm northwest of Denver, but everything else is much further to the east, and then they extend up into Wyoming.
Yeah, yeah. What else can I say? It's summertime now. Summertime.
It is.
Enjoy. Yeah, it is.
Well, the Storm Prediction Center, who we all know watch this show religiously, they wouldn't miss it. I just hope the start time at changing it to 7:35 to 8 o'clock didn't throw them off track. Yes. So they had to wait an extra 25 minutes for us. But we've got 2 tornado watches up: western Oklahoma, northwest Texas, inside an enhanced area of severe weather. Another enhanced area of severe weather in northeastern Colorado, southeastern Wyoming, and western Nebraska. And we've got a tornado watch and a severe thunderstorm watch working in that section. Marginal risk down in Florida from the Panhandle up and down the rest of the state. But other than general thunderstorms in the southeast and Tennessee Valley, they kind of snake that line up to about southern New Jersey, really not showing all that much. So this is what it looks like on the bigger map. And when we look at the tornado risk, elevated to 5% in that area from north central Texas to the Oklahoma Panhandle, and also that area in northeastern Colorado, northwestern Nebraska, western Nebraska, and southeastern Wyoming. Tomorrow, which is our Thursday to Friday forecast, we now have a marginal risk for the eastern North Carolina, half of South Carolina, the southeastern part of Georgia, and much of the state of Florida. Also, West Texas and then up the western plains with a slight risk cutting across Colorado, including our friends in Denver. And that's a 2% tornado risk there and a 2% tornado risk in the Carolinas. And day 3, which is Friday into Saturday, now we have general thunderstorms all the way up almost to Maine, and a marginal to slight risk in the western part of the central and the western part of the central plains, I guess you want to call that, and the southwestern part of the northern plains.
And the thing that's really going to cause some problems will be the dew point temperatures. And I know it's not. We use fans and air conditioners to stay cool and comfortable during spells of hot weather. But I tell you that sometimes when the temperature is only near 80, if the dew point is high enough, I'll flick on the air conditioner, because it really can be. I mean, you step outside and it's almost like you break a sweat, not because of the heat, but because of all the humidity. And we are looking for dew point temperatures, I think, Joe, locally here in the tri-state area, flirting with 70. And that will go a long way to helping to provide, locally heavy showers. There may not be all that many showers in any one spot, but, any one singular shower, dew points that high, the precipitable water is probably going to be quite high, and you can probably get a very quick, quarter or a half an inch in just a few minutes with those kind of conditions.
Brandon Doherty would like to ask this question, and thank you for hitting Super Chat, Brandon. Most appreciated. Joe, what day this weekend? Now, he's down in Delaware, okay? He spells it DELAW-WHERE ? What day this weekend will be the best in Delaware, as his wife needs to know for an event that she is in? He told her Sunday. I would probably say Sunday as well. I would lean to Sunday.
I would think Sunday, but it's so difficult because these are hit or miss showers, and you just might, unfortunately, end up being unlucky to have one pass over you with, again, a high level of humidity. it might be a brief 10 or 15-minute downpour. And overall, the day of a Sunday turns out to be dry, but it's just that 10 or 15-minute period when you have that thing coming over you that, what can I say?
Yeah, I agree with you. This is going to be one of those things where you're just not going to be able to tell. I mean, you look at what's in front of you and you say, okay, well, maybe Sunday looks like a better day than Saturday, but that doesn't help you if you're the unlucky soul to think it's going to be dry, and lo and behold, a patch of thunderstorms develops right over you, which is not out of the question.
Right. And especially so, again, with the high dew points, you could have a storm or a shower just pop up literally out of nowhere at any moment in time. You don't need the diurnal. Normally we would say, all right, well, the best chance for a thunderstorm, 3 o'clock in the afternoon to 10 o'clock at night. But when the dew points are so high, you could throw that out of the window and just simply say it can happen anywhere, anytime, any place. So, I overall, the way the model guidance is suggesting, Sunday's not going to be all that terrible a day, and there could be long stretches of when nothing is happening. But
right.
Again, you got to be careful because stuff can happen.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And by the way, we should mention too that before the show started, Quiet John hit the super chat tip jar. Thank you, Quiet John. As always, very generous of you. Thank you.
Yes.
Here's our rainfall forecast from our friends at WPC, who are also regular watchers here, big fans of the Joe and Joe Weather Show, because think about it, not many people mention WPC, but we do. We love you, and they kind of juiced up the rainfall a little bit. Everybody from the Appalachians eastward getting at least 2 inches, and in some cases 2 to 3 inches or more for the eastern half of Pennsylvania, much of New Jersey to Long Island, to the Hudson Valley, to the Catskills, to western Connecticut and western Massachusetts, and even a few pockets in north central New York and on up into northern New Hampshire. So a very bullish view with regards to rainfall. Now, this is a 7-day rainfall forecast, so this carries you through a week from today. The middle and South Atlantic states, it's basically 1.5 inches to as much as 3 inches near the coast. But also remember that in the southeast, it's been raining here for several days now. So this is on top of what we've seen so far, which in many areas has been on the order of 2 to as much as 4 inches or even more. So as a result, the Weather Service does have, I should have mentioned this from the beginning, we'll go to the tropics in a moment, but just to go back, the Weather Service does have flash flood watches up for the Florida Panhandle, much of Georgia, except the northwest and the southeast, the western part of South Carolina, western North Carolina, and into southern Virginia. My suspicion is that since the rain numbers are spread out, we're probably going to see, most folks I think are going to see rain at some point starting tomorrow and probably into Tuesday. But it doesn't rain all the time. I'm thinking they probably won't have much in the way of, they probably won't have to worry about putting a general flash flood watch up because it's spread out. However, on any one of those days, you get under one of those thunderstorms, as you pointed out, Joe, this could certainly turn out to be a case where you start to see these localized flash flood warnings that go up for a county here or a county there, or maybe more than just a county here and a county there.
Oh, absolutely. And in fact, now I know you have the colorized version of the WPC precipitation map up. I like to look at the version with the contours, and the contours show over the next 7 days.
Would you like to show the contours?
Sure. Why not?
We are a visual medium.
Yes.
So go on. Have at it.
So, wow.
Well, while you're prepping that, just real quick.
Oh, there it is.
On this map, we got the extreme excessive heat warning still up in Texas with her heat advisory surrounding that. You see the working tornado watches that are in yellow and the severe thunderstorm watch that's up in salmon. Flash flood watches up in Montana and northern Wyoming, and you're still having some air quality issues in Wisconsin, around the lower part of Lake Michigan, from the Michigan side back to the Illinois side, and also through much of the state of Minnesota except the northern part of the state. Now, Joe will show you the contours.
Right, the isohyates, if I may use that term. And before I get into that, thank you to Leon Probitsky for hitting super chats tonight. Thank you very much, Leon. Now, I have the map up, and your first glance at this, you say it's so confusing. It looks like multicolored spaghetti, but focus on the New York metropolitan area here. There is a isohyet or a contour. I'm using as best I can, the cursor here. You could see 3 inches. That 3-inch contour covers eastern and central Pennsylvania, all the way up through the lower and mid Hudson Valley of New York, all of western Connecticut, and then down across the northern third of New Jersey. That's 3 inches forecast for the next week. But, and this is what tipped me off here, when I looked at the color version that Joe shows, this area is red, but then there's a different shade of red right here, kind of a lighter shade of red. And I said, I wonder what that stands for. Well, right here, right near the borderline of western Jersey and eastern sections of Pennsylvania, there is a 4-inch isohyet. 4 inches right in that little zone right there that is forecast over the next 7 days. So you talk about rain, you talk about heavy-duty precipitation. There you go. They're going to get more than your fair share. And this area, this whole area here, which just a week or so ago was indicated, especially out in Pennsylvania, they indicated, drought situation. That's going to be gone. If this transpires, that's going to be gone by next week, by next Thursday. Believe me, all that rain is going to do very well to getting rid of the abnormal dryness that we have seen in recent weeks in this part of the country.
Totally agree. And we're going to switch over to the upper air of the latest GFS run. And before I do that, I just want to mention that Leon Probitsky hit this tip jar a second time, which is pretty cool. Thank you, Leon. So here's your upper low. It's been there for 2 days, and it's going to be there for a little while longer. Big upper high sitting across the northern lakes to about James Bay. So let's put the little H over there. Deep trough out coming into the western part of the United States. The flow from Canada is not conducive to bringing smoke into into our neck of the woods, so that's a good thing. The smoke is actually backing southwestward in the low level flow, going into Minnesota, Wisconsin, and in and around the lower part of Lake Michigan. So that at least we've resolved that one issue for at least a little while. This upper low doesn't get out of the way. In fact, the flow along the East Coast becomes pretty much southerly. And anytime you have a southerly flow at this time of year, it's not fun. When you have a southerly flow aloft like this, it's just basically an alleyway for moisture to come up from the Gulf of Mexico and from off the Atlantic and just shoot up the East Coast. And that's exactly what's happening. And unfortunately, there's also no real kicker to get that upper low out of the way. Now, eventually one does come out. On Friday, you can see there's a little closed low that's over Utah and northeastern Nevada. So that's going to help to start to move this system to the east, especially once that short wave gets up into Minnesota, the Dakotas and Minnesota. So the upper trough still hanging about on Sunday. We still have a south-southwest flow Saturday night into Sunday morning. And then, of course, the Dakota system now gets to the western Great Lakes and decides to amplify going into Monday. I think Monday, Joe, that's a nice looking, almost negatively tilted trough here for Monday. With an approaching cold front, there probably, I think, will be a rather vigorous line of thunderstorms that will develop later Monday afternoon into Monday evening with this.
I would agree. I would absolutely agree on that.
The heat ridge is still centered in West Texas and southern New Mexico. So there's not going to be a whole lot of relief going on there. This trough takes its time moving out. It's still hanging around on Tuesday, so that might even set off some more showers and storms on Tuesday. But then after that, I think we'll get into a northwest flow for Wednesday into Thursday, so it'll be a bit better. But there's still troughing here. There's another little short wave that comes down and makes a little trough there right on the coast on Thursday morning and cuts off a low into New England. I mean, of all things to happen again. But that's the kind of pattern we're in, folks. There's no ridging here in the east at all. It's just this uh, pattern wants to keep making troughs in the eastern part of the United States. So if you're looking for a heat wave to settle in for 4 or 5 days or 6 days, it ain't happening through the fourth. It's not happening. The last day on the long range is July 7th. So not looking like we're going to see any kind of prolonged hot weather anytime soon.
Latex Dreams on the chat board said Rayo sounds hoarse, and actually you spelled it's the wrong horse, but there is a reason for that.
Can we bet on the horse?
I did between 11 o'clock this morning and 3 o'clock this afternoon. I did not one, not two, not three, but 4 classes for a school in Chowchilla, California, via Zoom on astronomy and the solar system. The kids ranged in age from like 5th to 7th grades. So they were each 45-minute classes, and I had a brief 15-minute break to have a little lunch, some soup. Verona was nice enough to make me some soup in between the first 2 classes and the last 2 classes. So I've been in this room talking from 11 to 3, and then a bit of another break for a little rest and some dinner. And then, of course, I did a library talk at 6:30, which is why we pushed tonight's show to 8 o'clock instead of 7:35. And now here I am doing Joe and Joe. So if I sound hoarse, there's your reason. That is why.
Yeah, he's been yapping.
And where did you get the map? Brendan Doherty said, where did you get the map on NOAA? I presume he's talking about the QPF contour map. All you need to do is to go on the weather prediction site,
WPC,
and WPC site. Go to QPF, and what you'll see is the precipitation maps done in living color, as Joe often shows on our show. But there's also a button that you can push that can change that from the color version to the contours. And so if you want more precise or more exact numbers, or try to just make out, especially in situations like this where the contours are so closely stacked together, try to see how much is being predicted, you can go there and get the information on the contour map.
And I just put the link up on the chat board for everybody to look at for their enjoyment and their convenience. You can start, that's the homepage, and you can start from there. So I switched over to the Europeans view because the European and the GFS actually line up pretty much the same here. There's not a whole lot of difference. It may be just a matter of trying to figure out what time of day. And I would think we've got this first surge of rain for tomorrow, which makes it to southern New England and then just starts to fall apart from there. But we do see rain coming up the coast for tomorrow, covering a good portion of the day side. And then that goes out, and then there's a break. And then there's another surge of rain that comes up early Friday morning. And then that kind of hangs around, and you'll probably see some thunderstorms develop because the winds on Friday are going to start to bend around more to the south, so as opposed to being from the east. So you might have temperatures tomorrow, for example, might be another day where you struggle in the 60s all day, but then we might start seeing some warmer temperatures with those high dew points that Joe Rayo mentioned. So you could certainly see how much green there is on the screen here Friday afternoon and evening. And then lasting Friday night into Saturday morning along the coast. And then they fire up again in the inland areas by mid-morning across Pennsylvania and upstate New York and continue through the day all the way down into Virginia and North Carolina. Fortunately, I'm going to have a dry day on Saturday here in Georgia, which is really great because I have a fishing trip planned. And then Sunday, same thing. Saturday night, it dries out into Sunday morning, and as soon as the sun comes up, the showers and storms are going to form all over again. But this time more to the north and to the south. And then Monday, with that next trough, here comes the low across northern Michigan and the cold front. And I think that's, as I mentioned, and Joe agrees, probably a good chance that we could see some vigorous shower and thunderstorm activity with the front approaching. And then it comes, and actually there's a lead trough that comes through on Monday, and then the cold front arrives on Tuesday with some showers and storms. I mean, look at the European on Tuesday; it's just loaded up and down the East Coast. And then finally, by the time we get to even Wednesday, the European still has some showers and storms lingering around before things start to improve next Thursday and for next Friday. So you may have a long wait for a perfectly rain-free day around here.
Yeah, and I just took a look at the extended GFSX forecast, the Moss forecast for White Plains, and it starts off tomorrow in the morning for Thursday at White Plains. A dew point of 55. That's not bad. And even tomorrow afternoon, 60. That's right on the verge of, getting into a muggy kind of pattern. But then dew points, take a look, 65 Friday morning, 67 Friday afternoon, Saturday 67 all through the day, Sunday 66 morning, 67 Sunday afternoon, 66 on Monday. It just never wants to end. I mean, when you're in that 65 to 70 range for the dew point, that is, with a capital letter M, muggy. So enjoy these last few hours of relative dry weather, and I'll bet you that not a few of you turn on the air conditioning. Not that it's going to get overly hot. I mean, the projection is for near 80-degree temperatures at White Plains on Friday and Saturday and Sunday. And I know a lot of you that, well, I could handle 80. I don't know, but combine that 80 with a dew point of 65 to 70, and that's like the wallpaper is about ready to peel off the walls with that kind of condition.
Ew.
So, yeah.
All right, let's talk about Bret, because I just pulled up the latest reconnaissance aircraft, which is in there right now and is now approaching the center. But not at least from the time that this was issued, which was at 27, about 9 minutes ago. It wasn't quite there in the center yet, but it just posted a 55 to 60 knot wind barb as it flies from southeast to northwest. See if they got the graphs up. We could see if we could figure something out with this. So it looks like the pressure on this pass that it just made, this was trying to see where the time is on this. I can't seem to find it. All right, I'll probably figure it out after the show is over. But looks like the pressure's dropped down below 997. That's about a 4 millibar drop. And again, it's that flight in now. So you see that the blue is the flight level wind, and you see the spike here on the right side of this first chart. Heading up over to the 50 knot range, and same on the other side, the SFMR wind speed and rain rate. Again, also the spike up as the plane gets in there. So the 997 pressure at least suggests that this thing is 55 to 60 knots in terms of maximum sustained winds, just below very strong tropical storm as it heads on to the west. And at 8 o'clock, it was at 13.4 north, 54.6 west. So that's not too far from Barbados, just about maybe 200 and some odd miles from east of Barbados. Moving west at 15, carrying top winds of 65 miles an hour. Now, you see they have it as a tropical storm. You see where the tropical storm warnings are, tropical storm watches for the southern Leeward Islands, the southern Leewards, and then the area that splits the two, the islands of Martinique, Dominica, St. Lucia, and Martinique, all under tropical storm warnings. Even though the Hurricane Center is carrying this as a tropical storm when it gets to the Caribbean, the shear is so overwhelming. I would be really shocked if this were the case, and that by the time we get to Friday night or Saturday morning, this could may very well have weakened at that point to an open trough.
Yeah.
But,
why not?
Yeah, but it's probably still going to be certainly going to be a tropical storm. I think as it crosses the islands, it's after it gets to the other side that it's going to run into that deep trough that's in the upper atmosphere. And we could take a look at the Atlantic view.
And no sooner is this going to fade out but then we'll have Cindy to talk about right behind it. So, I mean, it's like as one reaches its peak and fades out, then the other one says, okay, I'll take it from here.
Right. And yeah, here's the so this is the wind shear, the wind shear view, and you see in the Caribbean. I mean, all of this in the central and western Caribbean, you have screaming 50 knot plus winds in the upper atmosphere. The tropical storm is back in here. See all those lines that cross off. There's actually an upper high that's helping with the outflow in this area, and it's not really in that strong wind shear. But once it gets there, it goes into the islands, and the GFS here. This is for let's see. This is Friday morning, 2 a.m. Friday morning. It's starting to get into that 50 knot belt of winds across the western Caribbean now have pushed further east into the central Caribbean. And by the time that storm gets on the other side, it's going to be dealing with that. Now, here's an interesting development here on this run, Joe. The shear actually diminishes somewhat Friday night and Saturday, but there's still enough of it that it sort of suggests that it gets sheared apart to a point where even though the shear is less, it's still going to be formidable enough to keep it from regenerating once it gets down and once it gets ripped apart in the Caribbean. And that's what the model just doesn't bring it back. It's gone.
Yeah.
And as for the other one, it should be there. It is on the screen on the lower right, and here too. It comes out as a tropical storm, but then it runs into that shear that's north of 15 north and east of the islands, and then that gets ripped apart as it moves northward. So that second one may develop into a tropical storm, but it may not last very long.
Yeah. Well, still early in the season, and we'll
and meanwhile, by the way, there probably will be something developing in the Pacific sometime in the next week. You can see how the GFS picks up on this energy on the Pacific side. The Eastern Pacific has been asleep through the whole month of May and June so far, but looks like finally something's going to get going there. Maybe a week from early next week. So that pretty well, I think, covers it. The satellite loop of Bret here, the convection, it looks like there's a nice area of convection, nice solid area of convection near where the circulation center is. The circulation seems to be under it for a while, and I'm not seeing any kind of widespread shear. The islands are coming into view on the left side, so they're going to see those islands mentioned that are in the tropical storm warning are going to have a rough 12-hour period as this thing goes by.
Well, you're down in the Caribbean in the summer. You got to expect days like that, and that's what they're going to be getting.
I just don't think they expected something to come out of the tropical Atlantic.
It's so soon. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that just is it'll be. We might as well root for the second one to develop, if only so that it becomes the first time ever that we've had two tropical cyclones in the tropical Atlantic. This in the month of June, which, as we said earlier in the show, has never happened before that we know of.
I think we're going to pass on Driller Jeopardy night because I'm going to go to sleep.
Yes, you're fading. I can sense it. So let us now say goodbye, and we can do that by starting off with saying goodbye and telling you that we are brought to you by Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is pinned to the top of the chat board, and it's also on the descriptor to this video. And if you use the coupon code Joe and Joe Weather Show on any of your purchases there, because they have other weather gadgets too, you will get
a big 10% off.
Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, 6317561125 for all your hardware and landscaping needs. Best prices anywhere in the tri-state area. The website is
omnitruevalue.com. And thanks again to Quiet John, Brandon Doherty, and Leon Probitsky squared, because he hit the tip jar twice tonight, and we thank Leon for that.
And twice as nice.
Yes.
So we'll see everybody tomorrow, regular time, 7:35. Nighty night.
Nighty night, folks.
Yes, you are.